The first time Captain Ryan Hale saw her, the entire hall seemed to hold its breath. The chamber was vast and cold, filled with glimmering pillars of crystal and soldiers of two worlds standing like statues. Humans on one side, the Arendari on the other. Between them stood their leaders, negotiating the fragile peace that had taken years of blood to even imagine. But it wasn't the silence of politics that struck Ryan. It was her, Princess Solara of Arendar. She stood just ahead of her royal guard, her posture elegant yet strong. Her skin shimmered faintly, a tone between silver and moonlight, and her eyes, vast and radiant like the ocean's heart, locked on him for a moment longer than protocol allowed. Ryan had seen many alien dignitaries before, but none carried warmth in their gaze. None looked human when they smiled. Solara did. As the human envoy's captain, Ryan wasn't supposed to speak out of turn. But when the princess stepped closer, bowing slightly to her father, and her soft voice echoed across the crystalline hall, he found himself listening too closely to the way her lips shaped each word. "Peace is built by courage," she said, "and sometimes by trust in strangers." After the meeting, as the hall emptied, she walked past him, silent, dignified. But as she passed, she stopped, her head tilted ever so slightly. "You stared," she said softly, her voice musical, teasing. Ryan stiffened. "Forgive me, Your Highness. I didn't mean—" "You did." Her tone wasn't angry. If anything, it sounded curious. Her gaze lowered briefly to his mouth, then back to his eyes. "You humans express emotion so boldly, even when you pretend not to." Ryan's heart stumbled. "We wear them poorly, I suppose." Solara smiled faintly, that same quiet curve that had frozen his attention before. "Perhaps, but that imperfection is honest." She turned as if to leave, and something in him wanted to anchor her there even for a moment longer. Words slipped out before he could stop them. "You have a kind voice," he said softly, but not softly enough. "And your lips, they move like they're painting each sound." Solara stopped mid-step. Her shoulders trembled once like a ripple crossing still water. Then she slowly turned her head toward him. "My lips?" she repeated, eyes gleaming. Ryan felt the full weight of 100 silent guards in the corridor, though none moved. "I meant that the way you speak." But Solara only stepped closer, the faint scent of starlight and something floral drifting between them. Her gaze locked on his, unblinking. Then softly, dangerously, she asked, "Want a taste?" The words hung in the air like a spark before thunder. Ryan's throat tightened. The world seemed to narrow to her voice, the bold challenge beneath her calm, the humor that danced in her tone, the ancient pride that met human vulnerability. He didn't answer. He couldn't, and yet something in his silence was an answer. Solara smiled, almost sadly, and stepped back, whispering, "Then you must learn what courage truly means." Human, and before he could speak again, she was gone, a silver silhouette dissolving into the corridor's light. That night, Ryan lay awake in his quarters, her words echoing in his head. Not because of what she said, but because of how she said it. With the certainty of someone who had seen 1,000 empires rise and fall, and still dared to tease a human soldier as if he were the most interesting thing in the galaxy. He didn't know it yet. But that moment, those 4 words, and would change everything. For her, for him, and for the fragile peace between their worlds. Ryan didn't sleep that night. Her voice, those 4 words, echoed in the stillness of his quarters like a heartbeat that refused to fade. Want a taste? It wasn't the flirtation that disturbed him most. It was the challenge buried inside them, as if she wasn't just testing him. She was testing what it meant to be human. The next morning, the peace delegation prepared to depart for Arendar's capital moon, a world of silver trees and mirror lakes suspended under an endless twilight sky. Ryan was assigned as part of the security escort for Princess Solara herself. When he heard the order, he almost thought the universe was mocking him. Their shuttle cut through clouds that shimmered like glass dust. From the viewport, Ryan saw cities built like poetry, curves instead of angles, light instead of metal. The Arendari didn't construct. They grew their world. Every building pulsed faintly with life. Every bridge hummed with the energy of living stone. Solara stood by the window, watching her world below. Her reflection glowed faintly against the glass, soft, serene, and utterly unreadable. Then quietly she spoke. You humans build for strength, she said. We build for harmony. Yet both break when the heart falters. Ryan blinked. You sound like someone who's seen both. She looked at him then, her eyes like twin storms of sapphire light. Perhaps I have. Perhaps I envy your kind for feeling so deeply, even when it destroys you. He didn't know what to say to that. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was weighty, alive. When they arrived at her moon palace, the air smelled faintly of rain and crystal sap. Solara led him through vast gardens where light bloomed in the form of flowers, each petal a flicker of bioluminescence. The guards followed behind at a respectful distance, but Solara slowed until only Ryan walked beside her. You still think of last night, she said suddenly, not looking at him. Ryan almost stumbled. That obvious? Her lips curved faintly. To one who listens closely, yes. Your heartbeat betrayed you before your words did. He exhaled. You said something I didn't expect, Your Highness. You caught me off guard. Solara turned to him fully then, eyes catching the faint shimmer of the glowing flora. You see, she said softly. Humans think truth lives in restraint, but sometimes truth lives in the risk of being misunderstood. Ryan met her gaze. Is that what you were doing last night? Taking a risk? Her expression changed. The faintest flicker of emotion crossed her face. Regret or amusement? Maybe both. I was testing something, she said finally. Testing whether a human could see beyond appearance. Whether you would hear the meaning behind my words, not just the sound. He frowned slightly. And what meaning was that? Solara stepped closer, just close enough that the glowing flowers brushed the edge of her gown, scattering tiny sparks of light into the air. When I asked if you wanted a taste, she whispered, I wasn't offering temptation. Captain Hale, I was asking if you wanted to understand, to see my people through my eyes, to learn the weight of our hearts. Her tone was so calm, so filled with quiet conviction, that Ryan felt something inside him shift. The memory of war, of hatred and propaganda melted for a heartbeat. I would, he said honestly. I want to understand. Solara smiled, softer this time, like dawn breaking through shadow. Then tomorrow, she said, you will taste Arendar as no human ever has. And she turned away, her silver hair catching the starlight like a trail of falling dust. Ryan stood there long after she was gone, his chest tight, his mind alive. He didn't know what she meant, but he could feel it. Whatever tomorrow held, it wouldn't just be diplomacy, it would be discovery. Of her world, of her soul, and maybe of his own. The next morning dawned in shades of silver and rose, light spilling over Arendar's endless twilight horizon. Ryan awoke with his mind still heavy from the princess's words. You will taste Arendar as no human ever has. He wasn't sure whether to be excited or afraid. When the palace attendants came for him, they said only, Her Highness awaits. He followed through long corridors that shimmered faintly with energy, each wall pulsing like the inside of a living being. The air smelled faintly of rain and warmth, the scent of a world alive in every stone. At the heart of the palace, a circular chamber opened beneath a glass dome. Light filtered through in ribbons, dancing over a pool that looked like liquid crystal. And there she was. Princess Solara stood barefoot at the pool's edge, her silver gown brushing the glowing water. The reflections of both human and alien guards shimmered faintly in the background, but she turned to him as though the world itself had paused. Captain Hale, she said, her voice as calm as morning light. Today you'll learn what binds my people together, what we call the communion of essence. Ryan stepped closer, careful. Communion. Solara nodded. To us, understanding begins not with words but with feeling. When two beings share their essence, they share fragments of memory, emotion without deceit. It is our way of trust, he hesitated. You mean a connection of minds? Of hearts, she corrected gently. We call it tasting the soul. Ryan felt a chill travel through him. And you want me to? Solara's lips curved with quiet amusement. To taste, yes. Not with your mouth, Captain. With your courage, he swallowed. And if I'm not ready? Her gaze softened. Then you will never know what peace truly means. There was something unspoken in her tone. A memory, a wound perhaps. For a moment she didn't seem like a princess or an alien, but simply someone who'd lost something too human to name. He nodded slowly. Then teach me. Solara's eyes brightened and she extended her hand. Her touch was warm, Not metallic or cold as he expected. When their palms met, light rippled outward, gentle and alive. "Close your eyes," she whispered. He did. At first, there was nothing. Then a surge, a wave of sensation that was neither sight nor sound but feeling. It poured into him, like light becoming emotion, like touch becoming truth. He saw flashes, Solara as a child standing beneath a glowing tree, laughing as a silver rain fell. He felt her fear the day her mother died in the War of Fractured Moons. He felt the weight she carried every day since, the burden of uniting a people that had lost faith in love, in peace, in anything beyond survival. And then, he felt her heart see him. His memories unfolded to her in return. A boy standing in the ruins of a human colony, clutching his sister's broken pendant. The years of training, the battles, the exhaustion of pretending not to feel, and through it all, a single unspoken ache, to believe that humanity was more than destruction. The bond flickered, deepened, and for one instant their hearts were one rhythm. Two lights intertwining, then the connection broke. Ryan gasped, stepping back, his eyes wide. Solara was breathing harder too, her hand trembling slightly. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then quietly she said, "Now you see why peace cannot be forced by treaties alone." Ryan's throat tightened. "You showed me everything. Even your pain." Solara looked down, her voice softer. "And you showed me yours. That is the first lesson of the heart, Captain, to feel before you judge." He wanted to thank her, but the words died somewhere between awe and emotion. Solara finally looked at him again, her eyes now shimmering not just with light, but with understanding. "You see now why your compliment mattered," she said. "You didn't just see my lips, Ryan. You saw that I spoke with meaning. That's why I tested you." Ryan's breath caught. "And did I pass?" A faint smile curved her mouth, tender, mysterious, almost human. "You did more than that," she whispered. "You made me remember what it means to be seen." The evening sky above Arendar's capital moon was neither day nor night. It shimmered in 1,000 hues of violet and blue, as if the heavens themselves couldn't decide between light and shadow. Ryan stood on the palace terrace, still trying to steady his breath. What he'd felt in that communion of essence wasn't something he could name. It wasn't just seeing Solara's past, it was feeling it, as though her memories had become veins beneath his own skin. He had tasted her world, and it had changed him. Behind him, the door opened softly. Solara stepped out. No guards this time, only the whisper of her gown brushing the marble. The breeze carried the faint scent of star lotus, that same sweet fragrance that always seemed to follow her. "You look troubled," she said gently, walking to stand beside him. Ryan managed a quiet laugh. "Just thinking. It's hard to process everything you showed me." Solara turned her gaze toward the horizon. "Humans are not made for stillness," she murmured. "You live fast, love fiercely, and fear deeply. But that is also your beauty." He studied her profile in the dim light, the curve of her face, the faint shimmer of her skin catching the stars. "You sound like you've studied us for a long time." "I have." Her voice carried a hint of melancholy. "Since I was a child, I watched your transmissions from afar, your art, your songs, your wars. My father said humanity was dangerous. I thought, perhaps danger was another name for passion." Ryan smiled faintly. "And now that you've met us?" Solara's eyes found his. "Now I know you're both dangerous and beautiful, because you feel without permission." There was a silence, soft, stretching between two souls that had seen too much of each other too soon. The stars glowed against her eyes, and Ryan felt something in his chest shift. Not just attraction, but a kind of recognition. "You said earlier," he began, "that my compliment mattered." "That I saw you," Solara nodded. "Few ever do." "Then let me say this," he said quietly. "When I looked at you, I didn't see a princess or an alien. I saw someone trying to carry a world alone. And I thought, maybe no one's ever told her she doesn't have to." For a heartbeat, she said nothing. Her expression faltered, and a flicker of surprise, almost pain, and then something softer. She turned away quickly as if hiding her emotion, her silver hair catching the twilight breeze. "You shouldn't speak like that, Captain," she whispered. "It makes it harder to remember where duty ends and heart begins." Ryan took a slow breath. Maybe that's what makes peace real, when both stop pretending they're separate. Solara's lips parted, and for a long moment her composure melted. She looked at him, really looked, as though seeing something she'd been forbidden to see. "You are unlike any human I've met," she murmured. "Most came to conquer or to study. You came to understand. Maybe because I've been broken too," he admitted. "You showed me your pain, Solara. I can't unsee it. And I don't want to." Her eyes shimmered, but not with the glow of her skin, with something far more fragile. "You shouldn't say my name so softly," she said almost in a whisper. "Why?" "Because it makes me forget the walls I must keep." A quiet stillness followed, a silence not of distance but of closeness neither dared to name. The wind rustled faintly through the star lotus trees, and the universe felt smaller, just two hearts trying to speak through the noise of 1,000 years of mistrust. Solara looked down, tracing a finger across the marble rail. "Tomorrow my father will expect an update on our alliance. The council will demand logic, numbers, agreements." Ryan nodded slowly. "And what will you tell them?" She glanced at him, a half smile ghosting her lips. "That I found something they could never quantify. Humanity's heart." Ryan exhaled, stunned into silence. Solara's smile faded into something quieter, more vulnerable. "You once said my lips painted words," she whispered. "Then remember this one, Captain. Every word I speak to you from now on will be painted with truth." And before he could answer, she stepped closer, just enough that the glow from her gown touched his chest like a pulse. "Rest tonight," she said softly. "Tomorrow will test us both." Then she turned and walked away, the faint shimmer of her steps dissolving into the corridor's light, leaving Ryan with the haunting certainty that for the first time in his life, peace wasn't a treaty, it was a heartbeat. The next morning dawned quieter than usual, almost too quiet. Ryan woke to the sound of Arendar's songbirds, creatures with translucent wings that shimmered like mist and glass. But beneath that beauty he could feel something unsettled. The palace atmosphere had changed. When he entered the council chamber, the air was heavy with tension. Alien nobles stood in semicircles, their eyes sharp and cold. At the center, seated upon a throne shaped like a silver crescent, was King Orion, Solara's father. His expression was carved from ice, and beside him, the princess. Solara stood with the same grace she always carried, but Ryan noticed something different this time. The calm behind her eyes was gone. Her hands were clasped too tightly in front of her, the faintest tremor in her composure. "Captain Hale," the king began, his voice deep, deliberate. "You were permitted to accompany my daughter to learn of our ways. But I have heard troubling whispers of bonding." Ryan straightened. "Your Majesty, with respect, But Orion raised a hand, silencing him. "Do not insult me with human hesitation. The communion of essence was never meant for outsiders. Yet my daughter chose to share it with you." All eyes turned to Solara. She didn't flinch, though her chin lifted defiantly. "I did what I believed necessary for peace," she said. "If trust is to mean anything, it must begin with vulnerability." The king's gaze darkened. "Vulnerability is a weakness, and weakness cost us the war of fractured moons." Ryan could see the pain flicker in Solara's eyes, but she didn't back down. "Then perhaps strength without compassion cost us even more." The silence that followed was sharp enough to wound. The king rose slowly, his robes sweeping like shadowed silk. "Human," he said, turning to Ryan. "My daughter's empathy blinds her. But I will ask you once, what did you see in the communion?" Ryan's throat tightened. Every instinct told him to stay diplomatic, to choose his words carefully. But when he met Solara's gaze, when he saw the quiet plea there, he knew he couldn't lie. "I saw her heart," he said simply. "Her memories, her courage, her pain. And I understood why she fights for peace, because she still believes in it even when no one else does." A ripple moved through the room. Murmurs, disbelief. Ryan took a breath. "And if that's weakness, Your Majesty, then maybe it's the kind of weakness the galaxy needs." Solara's eyes glistened. The king's expression hardened further. "You speak boldly for a guest," he said coldly. "But boldness without wisdom leads to ruin." He turned to his daughter. "You are forbidden from further contact with this human. The council will interpret this bonding As treason against our purity, Silara's lips parted.
Father, enough!
His voice struck the chamber like thunder. You will remember who you are, or you will lose the right to be my heir. Ryan stepped forward instinctively, but Silara's faint shake of her head stopped him. She looked at her father, not with anger but sorrow. As you command, she said quietly. The king left without another glance, the council following in his wake like shadows dissolving into silence. The room emptied, leaving only Silara and Ryan. She stood still, her shoulders trembling faintly, her face calm only by effort. They see emotions as contagion, she whispered. Something to be cured, not cherished. Ryan stepped closer. And what do you see? Silara looked up at him, her voice almost breaking. I see a truth that terrifies them, that a single human made me feel alive again. He reached out, but she drew a quiet breath and shook her head. They will watch us now. Every word, every glance. Then let them watch, Ryan said softly. They'll see what peace really looks like. A fragile smile touched her lips. You never stop daring, do you? Not when something's worth it. Silara looked down, her silver hair falling like starlight between them. Then be ready, Captain, she murmured, because the cost of trust on this world is everything. Outside, the twin suns of Arendar began to rise, two lights on opposite horizons destined to never touch. And in that glow, Ryan understood something profound. Peace was never about treaties or thrones. It was about the courage to keep reaching, even when the world told you not to. That night, Arendar did not sleep. The palace lights burned through the endless twilight, their glow spilling across the gardens like restless fireflies. Rumors had spread. The princess had defied her father, shared sacred rites with a human. To the Arendari, it wasn't romance. It was rebellion. Ryan stood on the balcony of his quarters watching the reflection of stars on the mirrored lakes below. Each ripple looked like a question he couldn't answer. He had come as a soldier, a representative of Earth's peace commission, not to stir a kingdom's heart. Yet here he was, tangled in something far larger, far deeper. A soft chime echoed from his door. He turned and froze. Silara entered quietly, hood drawn, her silver gown replaced by a travel cloak that shimmered faintly in the dim light. She looked different like this, not a princess, not a leader, but someone simply human in her need to be unseen. Silara, he whispered. You shouldn't be here. I had to see you, she said softly. Before they take my choice away, he frowned. What do you mean? The council meets at dawn, she replied. They want to remove me from succession, claim I'm compromised by human influence. My father hasn't decided yet, but his silence means surrender. Ryan's jaw tightened. Then I'll speak for you. No, she interrupted, stepping closer. You'll only make it worse. They already think I've fallen under your spell. Then let me prove them wrong. Her eyes softened. And how would you do that, Ryan? Deny what you feel? He froze. The question pierced through his thoughts like light through shadow. He wanted to answer, wanted to tell her everything he'd been hiding behind duty and fear, but the words caught in his throat. She took another step closer, until her face was only inches away, her eyes reflecting the starlight that glowed faintly against his armor. You showed me courage, Captain, she whispered. But courage without truth is still fear. Ryan's voice dropped. And truth without reason is chaos. A small, wistful smile curved her lips. Then perhaps we stand between them, where reason fears to go and courage dares to stay. For a moment, the world around them disappeared. The sound of the gardens faded, the glow of the palace dimmed. There was only her voice, her presence, and the ache of everything unsaid. Silara, he breathed. If I could change this, you can, she interrupted softly. Not by fighting for me, but by believing in me. I'm going to the lower sanctum tonight, the Hall of Echoes. It's where our ancestors recorded their memories. If I can show the council the truth, that humans and Arendari share the same roots of emotion, I can save this alliance. But I'll need protection. Ryan blinked. You mean you're going against the council's orders? I mean, she said, her gaze steady. I'm reminding them what peace really means. He stared at her for a long second, then nodded. Then I'm coming with you. A flicker of gratitude passed through her eyes, and for the first time that day, her smile wasn't strained. It was warm, fragile, real. They left the palace through hidden corridors carved from luminous stone, descending into the underbelly of Arendar. The air grew cooler, quieter, the hum of ancient energy surrounding them. The Hall of Echoes lay ahead, vast, circular, filled with towering pillars that pulsed faintly with living light. Within each one were memories, voices of the past frozen in shimmering strands. Solara placed her hand upon a pillar and the chamber awakened. The air vibrated with 1,000 whispers. "Here," she said softly. "Our ancestors once shared emotions freely, even with humans, long before the wars, but history buried that truth." Ryan listened as faint visions flickered through the air, images of ancient humans and Arendari standing side by side. Their hands joined in the same communion he had shared with her. He stepped closer, awed. "You were once one people," Solara nodded, divided by fear, bound again by feeling. Then, a sudden crash echoed behind them. Guards, voices, shouts. The council had discovered their escape. Solara turned, her expression calm despite the chaos. "Go," she whispered. "They'll arrest you." Ryan shook his head. "Not without you." She met his gaze, and for the first time her royal calm broke. "Ryan, please," but he only took her hand firm, certain. "I told you. Peace is worth the risk." The chamber's light brightened around them as the guards stormed in. The ancient pillars glowed brighter, reacting to their joined hands, as if the ancestors themselves recognized what was happening. In that moment, every guard froze, blinded by the brilliance of the past reborn, a bond between human and Arendari shining like living memory. Solara's voice broke the silence, calm and sure. "Then let history witness. Peace begins here." The light that burst from the Hall of Echoes flooded the ancient chamber like a storm of memory. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, the voices of long-lost ancestors rising in unison, their words humming in a language both alien and achingly familiar. Ryan shielded his eyes, feeling the warmth course through him, not heat but understanding. The same communion that had once linked their races was alive again, pulsing through his hand and Solara's, and as the guards stumbled back, frozen by awe, the visions began to unfold. They saw 1,000 years of forgotten unity, humans and Arendari standing together under the same twilight skies, building, creating, feeling. Then came the wars, the pride, the lies that had turned love into legend. The images were not history books. They were truths, laid bare in light and emotion. When the radiance finally dimmed, silence filled the hall. Not the silence of threat, but the silence of revelation. The council members had arrived, among them King Orion, his eyes wide, the weight of disbelief heavy in his stance. He stared at the glowing pillars, then at his daughter. "What have you done?" Solara stepped forward, her voice steady, though tears shimmered at the edge of her lashes. "I reminded you, that we were never meant to stand apart." Orion's jaw tightened. "You risked everything for a vision. He glanced at Ryan. "For a human." Solara's reply was soft but unyielding. "Not for a human. For the truth he represents." Ryan wanted to speak, but she lifted a hand, and in that simple gesture was trust. Trust that he'd already said enough through his actions. The king looked around as murmurs rippled through the council. Confusion, awe, and slowly, hope. The memories had spoken louder than power ever could. Finally, Orion exhaled. "You've bound our history to theirs again, Solara. The council will never forget this." "Then let them remember," she said quietly, "because forgetting is what nearly destroyed us." The king's gaze lingered on her, and something softened, the faintest crack in years of command. "You are still my daughter," he said at last, "and perhaps I have been blind to what leadership truly means." He turned to Ryan. "Human. I see now why she defied me." Ryan bowed slightly. "Not defiance, Your Majesty. Faith." For the first time, Orion almost smiled. "Then let us build a faith worth keeping." The council dispersed, the guards lowering their weapons. The hall's light faded into a peaceful hum. When they were alone again, Solara turned to Ryan, weary but radiant, her eyes reflecting the last glow of the ancient memory. "It's over," he said softly. Solara shook her head. "No, it's beginning." She walked to the pool of light at the center of the chamber and knelt, touching the floor where the visions had danced. You see, peace isn't something we sign. It's something we remember every day, even when it hurts. Ryan joined her, kneeling beside her. Then I'll remember it with you. She looked at him, eyes glistening, not with alien light, but with emotion that needed no translation. You shouldn't say things like that, Captain Hale. Why not? Because it makes goodbyes impossible. He hesitated, searching her face. Then maybe it's not goodbye. Solara's breath caught. What do you mean? Ryan smiled faintly. Earth's ambassador will need someone to guide them through Arendar's customs. Someone who understands both hearts. Her expression softened, a mix of pride, wonder, and something deeply personal. And what if I accept? Then, he said, his voice low, the stars won't be the only thing remembering us. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air shimmered gently around them, the last echoes of ancient unity fading into calm. Solara finally reached out, tracing her fingers across his palm. Not a royal gesture, not a ritual, just human. You once said my lips painted words, she whispered. Then let this be my last paintings, a promise. Her smile bloomed, tender and luminous. That I will never forget the human who reminded a princess what courage tastes like. Ryan's reply was quiet, filled with the ache of understanding. And I'll never forget the alien who taught me what peace feels like. The chamber dimmed, and for a heartbeat, the stars themselves seemed to lean closer, as if the universe was listening, because in that moment, humanity and Arendar were not two worlds anymore.